I was stationed at Camp Pendleton in San Diego, California. On my 72 and 96-hour liberties, would make the long drive back to my hometown up north. The incident I am about to recount took place somewhere along the Grapevine during one of those trips. I had a reckless habit of pushing my luck, always arriving just 30 minutes to an hour before formation, and this night was no exception. It was between 1 and 2 in the morning, sometime in the year 2001. The freeway was empty. I was traveling southbound on I-5, alone, slicing through the darkness at a steady 80 miles per hour in the fast lane. There were no other vehicles around, just the hum of my engine and the dim glow of my dashboard. Northbound and southbound lanes were divided, a void of black asphalt and open space stretching between them. Then, I saw it. At first, I thought it was fog, an eerie, creeping mist hanging low over the road. But something about it was off. It had no scent, no movement like normal fog rolling in waves. It just lingered, thick and stagnant. Then, in the distance, a reddish glow flickered in the darkness, illuminating the mist like embers from a fire. The light pulsed around what appeared to be a factory nestled in the divide between the north and south lanes. It reminded me of those early mornings in San Francisco when the dense fog settled around industrial buildings, giving them an otherworldly appearance. I had driven this stretch of road many times before, but I had never noticed a factory there. Still, I brushed it off and returned my focus to the road. And then it appeared, sudden and impossible. A small figure darted into view, running just 2 feet above the asphalt, keeping perfect pace with my vehicle. It was child-sized but grotesquely inhuman. My stomach lurched as I instinctively braced for impact, gripping the wheel with white-knuckled hands. But there was no collision, no sickening thud against the hood of my car. The creature remained in front of me, impossibly fast, effortlessly matching my speed. Then, it turned its head. Its head snapped toward me in a way that was unnatural, the motion too quick, too sharp. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of its face. It was humanoid, but only just. Its eyes were large, too large, glowing with a faint, sickly yellow light. Its mouth was a thin slit that twisted into something resembling a grin, revealing sharp, needle-like teeth. My breath hitched in my throat. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My body was frozen, paralyzed by something beyond fear. The creature continued to keep pace with my car, still hovering just above the asphalt, its gaze locked onto mine. A creeping dread crawled up my spine, an instinctual terror that whispered to me that I was seeing something I was never meant to see. Then, without warning, it angled its body upwards. Its thin limbs stretched unnaturally, its form elongating as it ascended into the night sky. It moved at an angle, defying gravity, like a puppet being yanked by unseen strings. I gasped, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. In mere seconds, it was gone, swallowed by the dark. A deep, reverberating sound followed, a horn, but not from any vehicle I had ever heard. It was deep, resonant, vibrating through my bones. The fog began to lift, thinning as I pressed my foot harder against the gas pedal, desperate to escape whatever had just shared the road with me. Minutes later, I emerged from the Grapevine, the road stretching before me as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I knew something had watched me that night, something that had chosen to reveal itself just long enough to ensure I would never forget. I drove in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breath came in shallow gasps, my mind racing to process what I had just witnessed. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see those glowing yellow eyes staring back at me from the darkness. But the road behind me remained empty, stretching out into the void like an abyss. I turned on the radio, needing something, anything, to break the suffocating quiet. Static. Just endless static. I switched stations, but there was nothing, only the distant crackling of dead air. The unease in my chest deepened. My body screamed for rest, but I knew stopping was out of the question. Whatever had been out there, I wasn't about to give it another chance to find me. As I pressed on, the night stretched longer than it should have. The road felt endless, the landmarks unfamiliar. The normal signs and exits I had memorized from years of traveling this route were missing. It was as if I had been dropped into another reality, one where time and distance had no meaning. I checked the clock, 2:17 a.m. I checked again minutes later, 2:17 a.m. A cold sweat broke out across my skin. I tried to shake the growing panic, convincing myself it was just exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But the longer I drove, the more the fear settled in, rooting itself deep in my gut. Then, out of the corner of my eye, movement. A shadow flickered in the trees lining the highway, keeping pace with my car. I swallowed hard and forced myself to focus on the road, but I could feel it watching me. I could feel its presence, just beyond the edge of my vision. My heart hammered against my ribs as the shadow darted closer, weaving between the trees with impossible speed. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, it was gone. The highway stretched endlessly before me, swallowed in the vast darkness of the night. I kept my foot on the gas, desperate to put distance between myself and whatever had been stalking me. My hands were trembling, but I refused to stop. Stopping meant letting it catch up, and I couldn't allow that. Then, something changed. The static on the radio let out a sharp burst of sound, a garbled voice, distorted and fragmented. My pulse spiked as I reached for the dial, turning it frantically, but I couldn't make out the words. It was as though something, or someone, was trying to speak to me from beyond the veil of static. A deep, guttural whisper finally broke through. "Keep driving." I nearly lost control of the car. My breath hitched, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't need to be told twice. The road ahead was still empty, but my paranoia had reached its peak. Every shadow, every flicker of light in my peripheral vision felt like a harbinger of doom. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the nightmare ended. The exit sign for Los Angeles appeared ahead, bright and welcoming. The radio cleared, switching seamlessly to a late-night talk show as if nothing had happened. The night returned to normalcy, the eerie fog and suffocating silence vanishing like a bad dream. My hands ached from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. By the time I reached my destination, the fear had dulled into a strange, unsettling numbness. I parked, shut off the engine, and sat in silence for a long time, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were sunken, dark circles etched beneath them. I wasn't sure if I had actually escaped that thing, or if it had merely let me go. To this day, I don't know what I saw out there. I don't know if it was something from another world, something ancient and watching, waiting. But I do know one thing: every time I drive that road, every time the fog rolls in and the night stretches long, I feel its presence. And I know it remembers me.